Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Neeru Tandon from Department of English, VSST College, Kanpur. In this paper of English language teaching, we are discussing in this particular module the skills, communication skills, and the third skill of LSRW, that is reading. Most of the time, it is found as the most neglected language skill. So we are just talking about this reading portion, how important it is, what are the best strategies for reading, how the reading should go on, and what is the real importance. Bacon said, "Read not to contradict and confute, nor to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider." Let me explain. Bacon, the father of English essays, in this particular essay of studies said, read not to contradict and confute. Then what should be the aim of reading? He wants to explain that, he wants to say that you should read. Your purpose should not be to contradict someone. Okay, let me go through it, let me understand it, and then I'm going to have a debate or fight with him. Or to confute. Not to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse. So you should be a very good speaker, that's why you are just going to read only. But to weigh and consider. You should have that factor in your personality. You should be in the position, in the judgmental position, so that you can weigh things and consider things in the proper way. That should be the aim of reading. Now there are various books. The question can be, what should I go to read? What should I read? Which book should I pick up for reading? There are various books that Bacon tells you in a very beautiful way. He says, some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. That is, some books are to be read only in parts, others to be read but not curiously, and some few to be read wholly and with diligence and attention. Not just understand this thing. Like some books are to be tasted, like a daily newspaper. You just go through it only in parts. You are interested in a sports section, you are interested in a particular section, you go through that and then you forget where that newspaper is. That is just to taste. The next day, that is useless. Others are there to be swallowed, like that is your course book. You read it. You read it because you are supposed to pass that exam. So you just read it for that matter, but not very enthusiastically, not very curiously. But there are some few to be chewed and digested, that you want to just give your 100% for reading that. You just give your time, energy, everything, and just dedicatedly you just try to retain whatever you have gone through. So those good books you are supposed to read wholly, and that with diligence, with great efforts and your complete attention. So reading is so important that Bacon has just stressed upon reading in centuries back, and it's a universal element, is still so relevant. So these four skills known as LSRW, where R stands for reading. Conventionally, reading was contemplated as an inactive skill, but today it is measured as the active skill. A person should be capable of reading in order to decode, to interpret, to understand properly the content of a reading material. Reading considered as a good source of self-education. You can get education in school, in college, by teacher, by sermons, by people telling you, but the best kind of education that you can get for yourself by reading good books. A person cannot keep himself up to date of all the news and knowledge, religion and culture, literature and science of word if he is not in the habit of reading properly. It is said in the Wikipedia, I quote, Reading is a complex cognitive process of decoding symbols in order to construct or derive meaning. Reading is a means of language acquisition, communication, and of sharing information and ideas. So reading, we have seen, that is the most important skill in English language from other language skills in acquiring language. If students are good in reading, they will be good in other language skills like writing, speaking, and listening as well. For this reason, teachers of English language, they must focus on this particular skill, that is, students should be good reader, voracious reader. If we want to define what is reading, we can say that reading is an intricate activity using the written symbols, meaning, ideas, and the reader's background knowledge. On the surface level, reading seems a simple process, but a person who cannot read understands its importance. In fact, it is a thinking process. Any definition of the reading process, therefore, must include interpretation and evaluation of meaning as well as construction of a new meaning as per the reader. Reading is an interaction between language and thought. At the time of receiving the language while reading, when you collaborate it with your thought process, then only reading gets complete. Written text not only provides linguistic meaning but also contextual meaning. Linguistic meaning involves represented information, and this is called literal meaning. Contextual includes the socio-cultural and intentional meaning incorporated in the text. A literal meaning of a text is accessible to the ordinary reader, whereas to obtain the pragmatic meaning of the encoded matter, one must have rich exposure to the ethno-linguistic aspect of the reading material. The writer encodes thought in the form of language through the words. If the reader is not able to interact with the words, the meaning will be lost. Then those will be only symbols or only letters. Now there are 4 components of reading, as you can see. Alphabets on one hand, comprehension on other hand, hold over vocabulary, like you are reading a word but you cannot comprehend unless and until you just understand that vocabulary. And you must have a fluency. Just like for speaking you are fluent speaker, in the same way you should be a fluent reader also. You must have seen that somebody reads a page in a half an hour or somebody within a few minutes. So that fluency in reading also counts. Some good definitions I would like to share with you. Goodman said, "The purpose of reading is the reconstruction of meaning. Meaning is not in print, but it is the meaning that the author begins with when he writes. Somehow the reader strives to reconstruct this meaning as he reads." Jenickson said, "Reading has been defined as an act of responding to printed symbols so that meaning is created. It has long since been recognized, however, that getting meaning from the printed page is too limited as a definition of reading. Bringing meaning to the printed page indicates more accurately the reciprocal process between the printer symbols and the mind of the reader." Vidya-mitra said, "Reading is the process of getting linguistic information via print through reading. The information conveyed by the writer through the print medium is retrieved by the reader." Now we say reading. Of course, we understand what the reading is. That okay, we have gone through certain printed words, and after looking that we attach meaning to it, and then we comprehend that thing, then it becomes reading. But what is reading a skill? That is something different. Reading is a skill. Why? Because it has to be taught. It cannot come on its own. So that is the skill. That needs some teaching. That needs some practice. So it is a skill. It has to be nurtured to make it even better. It needs to be developed over time, and it is a valuable, transferable tool that students need to be able to command and employ effectively. It is strategy based, that's why it is a skill. It is a linguistic skill. What Stephen Fisher said, reading is not merely the attaching of sound to grapheme, which occurs only at an elementary level. Meaning is involved, and in a fundamental way. At a higher level of perception, reading can even convey meaning alone without any recourse to sound. Therein lies reading's sense like magic. Reading, we all know, is a visual process for most of us. Reading as a visual process is an experimental process because without experience, the mind will be unable to invest meaning to the symbols that we see. Reading comes about when we take meaning to the printed page, not just the act of taking meaning from the printed page. This is said by Berg. Now you see this diagram that shows the reading process. This figure is adapted from Weaver. There is number 1 in the circle, it is reader. Then number 2 within that, between first and the third, the transaction between the first and the third. The first one is the reader, the third one is the text. And between these first and the third, reader and the text, there is a transaction going on. When this thing happens, outer circle, that is number 4, immediate situational context is there, in which context the reader will understand the text. And at the 5th level, the broader socio-linguistic contexts are there. So that completes the reading process. Now again, the 2 kind of processes are there in reading as well, the bottom up and top down. Bottom up processes are those that take in stimuli from the outside world like letters, like words for reading and deal with that information with little recourse to higher level knowledge. With top down processes, the information is guided by an individual's prior knowledge, prior experience, prior expectations. In this way, Terryman says that in most situations, bottom up and top down processes, they work together to ensure the accurate and rapid processing of information. Now, what are the qualities of an effective reader? Who is an effective reader? When a person reads, his capability as a reader can be judged by his efficiency of reading, which depends upon various factors like his linguistic competence, background knowledge about the subject, and the words used in the text. So, a reader is one who has purpose, who can concentrate, who can comprehend what he reads, who can remember what he is reading, who has a good vocabulary while reading, and who can read rapidly but with rate depending on the material, that the communication should be proper. There are various types of reading. Yoakum has classified reading according to the form, purpose, and the psychological process involved, like oral and silent reading. On the basis of form, we can read as silent reader. The reader either reads to himself or to others. That is one factor. When he is reading to him, then that reading most of the time is the silent reading. Then there is informational reading, reading to provide information or to get information, like a news reader. He also reads the news. He doesn't create the news, but he reads it. But he wants to provide the information. We read the news on the TV screen, that we read to get the information. Recreational reading is there. We read some novels, some storybook, that is for entertainment, that is for time pass. Then observational reading is there, where the reader makes note of what the writer intends to write but makes no special effort to analyze it or to remember the words or the ideas. There is assimilative reading, when the reader tries to understand fully and remember what he reads. He assimilates, digests. Reflective reading, is where the reader reads with a critical attitude. He wants to discuss that particular thing, whatever he is reading. There is creative reading when the reader tries to discover ideas so that you can use them subsequently in oral written expression. There is skimming, scanning. These are two very popular words associated with reading. Skimming. What is skimming? That involves quickly running one's eyes over at text to get the risk of it. Okay, just gone through it. The next page. Scanning. It involves quickly going through a text to find a particular piece of information. I have seen a page and there I found one heading that is of my use, that is of my interest. I just found that, go through that and left rest of the things. That is scanning. We have scanned our purpose and then left the remaining things. There are two other points like extensive reading and intensive reading. Extensive reading is nothing but reading longer text, usually for own pleasure. This is fluent activity, mainly involving global understanding or going through the complete novel and the writer of my choice, what he has written. Intensive reading involves reading shorter texts or extracts specific information. This kind of reading is otherwise known as reading for details, usually the academic kind of reading. In this diagram, you can see all these, that one, there are particularly readings are of three types like form, purpose and psychological process. Form is silent reading and oral reading. Purpose, recreatory information and some other that may depend upon the reader. Then the psychological process like observatory or assimilative, reflective or creative. There are 5 stages of learning reading. How to learn that, what is the best way of reading. At the first stage, the learner learns to read the alphabetic order like ABC up to XYZ. Then he learns to read the combinations like HE is equal to he, that means one male person. If we add S, then it is she, that means a female person. So he starts coining words with the help of the alphabets. In the third stage, the learner learns to read the words and in combination with other words in a sentence and understands the meaning of those words. In the fourth stage, the extent is reading ability at the sentence level and start having the context, using the context. In the fifth stage, he begins to comprehend the discourses. Only at this stage, he uses his both linguistic and socio-linguistic knowledge for complete understanding of the text and reading gets completed. So these are the steps: reading with metacognition, knowledge, life experience content, then reading comprehension, language structure, vocabulary, spelling, then reading fluency, and finally comes cognitive skills like phonological awareness, processing, attention, automaticity, memory, and sequencing. These are various methods stated by various researchers of ELT. Alphabetic method. In this method, the name of the letters are taught to the students in alphabetic order, and then combination of 2 or more letters and words combination in sentences are taught. Syllabic method. In the syllabic method, the unit of teaching is the syllable, not the letter. Syllables are used directly and words and sentences are framed combining syllables. Then word method, that is the most popular one. That word is the unit of teaching, and as well in phrase method, phrase is again the unit of teaching. Then sentence method is there, that tells the story method. The students are taught story in 4 or 5 sentences which are illustrated with pictures. Then comes the real story method, where a story is learnt by rote and then the student read that. Then the phonic method, it is the last one, where this method is based on phonology and is used in combination with the alphabetic method. But what I feel, that all these methods must be joined. You cannot just single out one method that I will use this particular method only and I will learn reading. No, you are supposed to use a combination of method to get hold of the skill. What kind of reading should student do? According to Habat, communicative reading activities should feature classroom reading versus real reading, authentic material versus unauthentic material, and good reading activities are post-reading task, while reading task, and pre-reading task. What you should read before reading, what you should do, what you should understand. In this diagram, you can see factors affecting reading. What are the various factors? They are written there, like attention, like level of energy, methods, hearing the phonemes, virtual and authentic thing, language skills, then motivation and others, and finally the maturity. Emotional problems are also there while reading. Now, what are the causes of the poor reading? Again, quickly I'll say lack of effective techniques, lack of effective practice, not a direct translation between word symbol and comprehension, word is compared to one in the more common spoken languages, insufficient background, technical details which demand a slower reading, and visual problems, sounds of letters you don't know how to pronounce that. Reading comprehension. Reading means reading with comprehension. So how different the reading comprehension is with other reading. When you are supposed to answer certain questions after reading, that is one word termed as reading comprehension. And otherwise, comprehension is involved in every other kind of reading that is known as the real reading. Now, whenever we read, there are certain factors that affect us. They may be internal, they may be external. What are the internal factors that affect us? Linguistic competence comes first. What the reader knows about the language. It's only the letters that he is aware of, or some signs or some punctuation marks also he understands. Motivation, how much the reader cares about the task at hand as his general mood about reading. He just wants to complete the work, or he wants to enjoy, or he wants that the way I am reading, others should understand it. It depends a lot about that. Then schooling and accumulated reading ability also affect. And how well the reader can read, that is the best part. Now, external factors affecting the reading are the printed page. If the printing page is not good on that particular page, it is difficult to write, it is faded, and he is supposed to just make guesses, then there is a problem. The qualities on the reading environment, text readability and text organization, and the teacher activity, all these things affect the reading capacity of a student. Now, what are the remedies? Suppose I am a reader, but I have certain problems. I want to overcome them. How to do that? Practice of differentiating the lexical and grammatical items, recognition of unfamiliar words and understanding of their literal and contextual meanings with the help of the teacher of dictionary will enhance the reading comprehensibility. So another remedy that will make the reading process easier and interesting may have easy and simple vocabularies may be used in reading material. The use of unknown and hard words in a familiar context of the student will increase the understanding ability of these students, but later on. Now, what will happen? That suppose whenever we just introduce the book to a young boy or girl, we may just give the cartoon books having different pictures and simple words that they understand while playing, while enjoying as well. So teaching of reading comprehension has to be done. That is also a very good way to teach how to read and how to understand a text and how to understand a contextual meaning as well as literal meaning of words will increase the reading ability of these students. The reading games are there. They may be introduced in classroom. That is, finding phrasal verbs, differentiating the mono, di and tri-syllable words, where to give the pause, In order to make reading an interesting challenge, it is important that learners do not work hard over every word, whether they are skimming the text for general meaning or scanning it to pick out specific information. If you don't understand the meaning of one word correctly, it's not required. Try to understand the use of that word, the sense it is conveying, so that you can understand the meaning, the communication is proper through that word. Teachers should discuss the subject and ask questions to elicit language and to stimulate the learner's interest in the text before they begin reading. Do not encourage learners to read text aloud unless this is to learn a play or recite a poem. Silent reading gives them confidence, and afterwards, when they feel they are confident enough, then only they can read aloud. This is the newspaper, and we read the newspaper first thing. Now, just for example, how to read efficiently, I am giving you some examples. This is a mobile phone where you can read through technology various e-books or certain e-news and messages, various other things are there that you are supposed to read. You can read through the help of the technology. Now, there are two different things. This is the traditional method of teaching where I am just teaching the newspaper how to read it, and this is with the help of the technology how we should just go ahead with the reading process one by one. So when we just come across the printed page, so what we can do, that we find that in a newspaper we find certain headings are there, and then it has been described in various parts. What a reader does, first of all, your attention catches. What catches your attention first? That is the heading. So in whatever piece of writing you are interested in, you just read that first. It will depend upon what you read first, that is scanning. So you will do the scanning first. This is automatic. You cannot change it. So this scanning portion will be done automatically, and then you will go through that particular thing. Then while reading, you will come across certain words that you cannot understand. So it is advisable for students, what you are supposed to do, please do underline those words. Don't stop over here. Do underline those words and then continue reading. And to understand, to comprehend the text properly, then try to find the meaning of these words, and then afterwards understand it and then read it once again. This is for students to read it properly. Read it once again after knowing those meanings. Maybe throughout the day you go through one newspaper, that is fine, but at least try to comprehend, try to read. Again, take care of the speed also. What should be the speed of reading? Suppose I am reading this newspaper and say 2 army officers, 15 soldiers killed in ammo depot blaze. Now what is it? This is, I am giving time. So fire broke out at particular place. So I am giving time to it. Or I can just go through a very speedy way. But in that case, I won't be able to understand it. And if I am reading it aloud for others, then people also will not be able to comprehend it. So the speed also matters a lot. Whenever I am reading, I should take care in mind that what is the purpose, what is the aim, what is the objective of reading that particular portion. With the help of the technology, whenever I am reading something, so this is the e-text, e-books in front of me in the mobile or in the computer. So while reading, we should take care that technology helps us in the pronunciation, just like that with the meaning also. In Kindle, that is known as e-book reader. It is a very good instrument, very good technology. You can use Kindles, like thousands and thousands of books you can store in one Kindle, or if you don't have Kindle, even then in your mobile you can have the Kindle app, and you can just read the ebooks, and then you can just Understand that with the use of technology and the other way also, you can have your reading. To sum up, I can say that it is concluded that the use of phrasal verb, hard words, complex sentences, lengthy sentences, unknown context, etc. in the reading material of the students hinder the students in understanding the concept of reading material. So it can be concluded that the parental education and economical position and the medium of instruction significantly contribute to the learning achievement of the students, especially in second language learning. However, the gender and geographical location have less influence over the process of learning reading comprehension of the students. So, practice is one thing that makes the reading experience better. So, after a period of time, when you keep on doing that, then the person concerned feels confident and his reading becomes a habit. So it is always said, if you want to master the other skills, reading is must. You cannot avoid reading considering it a less important skill. So keep on reading and enjoy your reading. Thank you for visiting EPG Pathshala.